Welcome to the very first episode of the Modern Woman's Menopause Show. I can't tell you how excited and grateful I am to Rogers TV for allowing me the opportunity to create conversation and community for women and those who love them during what can be a very challenging time of life. I am Coach Carolyn. I'm a health coach. I'm a life coach, personal trainer. I wear many, many hats, and I work especially with the woman 40 plus. And my goal is to actually help women literally shine from the inside out. I believe every woman should have that opportunity. And creating conversations is a really, really good place to start with this. When it comes to menopause, I can't say that I have any or all of the answers, having just entered officially menopause myself. However, as a businesswoman, what I have learned over the years is if you don't know something, reach out to the people who do. And I believe in bringing the experts to the table to have these discussions is very, very important for the community at large. And I really felt that this was a topic that we really would benefit from this happening. We won't have all the answers here, but we will offer what we can, and we will find the people who can offer the answers to help women feel more in control of this period of life. And also, we want to hear from viewers because you, I'm sure, will have ideas that we can also start reaching out to experts about. So finally, in health and fitness and as a health coach, life coach, my span has been 30 plus years working with women. I've heard their struggles, and whether it's about menopause or whether it's just about life in general. But when it comes to menopause, I've heard very few women talk about it from a positive, thriving aspect. And I really dream about creating something that perhaps it won't have women, shouting from the rooftops about, but at the same time offering information, actions, education that they can put into place and therefore help them create more hope during this time and love of self and inner strength and empowerment. Conversations need to happen so that when a woman feels so alone, she can hear us speaking about things and perhaps realize that there is an answer, there's someone that they can reach out to for help. I am really excited about introducing my first guest. I was very, very thrilled when Angela Grouse said that she would be my first guest because she has so much information to offer. She's an amazing woman I was introduced to this year, and she has a huge wealth of knowledge when it comes to women's health. Working with so many women, she hears their struggles and their strife, and she's able to help guide them and help them gain that control and build the health teams around themselves that they will so benefit from. There was no better person in my estimation to be my first guest. Thank you so much for being here, Angela. We've had some, I think, over the last few months of meeting each other, some really good conversations. And I just think what you have to offer women is just incredible. So I'm really, grateful for you being here. Well, I'm thrilled to be here. And I'm really excited that you are cracking open this conversation around menopause for women. It's so important. And I'm thrilled to add my piece. And you have so many pieces that you can add from which sounds funny, but what we've spoken about already. We were going to talk, let's start with the discussion around symptoms, because I know that so often for however many years now, when women get, let's say, emotional over something and they're of this age, or when something happens and they maybe don't react in the right way, it's typically, shoved away as, don't worry, she's going through menopause. It's a menopause symptom, and made light of, and almost not made fun of, but just made way too light of, as if it'll just go away. She'll just put her in a closet and let her come back when she's finished her tantrum or whatever. Let's talk about that, because I think now it is finally coming to the forefront that these are physical changes happening with us that we have no control over. And it's not, yes, we're getting emotional perhaps, but it's actually so much deeper than that.
Well, it is. And I think you're exactly right. We expect it at puberty. We can observe the changes in our teens. But when it starts to happen to us, it's a little less distinct. And so women 35 plus may, you're right, start to feel more sensitive, more irritable to things. Big one too, that a lot of women, even my age in their early 40s, are waking up and they're saying, wow, I can't work out hard. My joints, everything just hurts. I woke up and it was like I'd aged 2 decades. And the more I try and bully my body, the worse I feel. Right? And those symptoms around, okay, maybe my period's a little variable, but maybe it's not. It could be like clockwork. but you're starting to notice maybe vaginal dryness or a change in libido, and they're subtle at first. And you're thinking, well, maybe my kids are just in their teen years and I'm going through, some changes. Maybe it's that. And it's subtle. And because we don't talk about them, you're not sort of cued to say, I wonder what's going on and I wonder how I can set myself up for success. But also, educate myself and maybe those around me as to what perhaps is starting to happen, because there are so many subtle symptoms that I'm just tired. Oh, fatigue, right?
Yes.
The fatigue of like, wow, I just can't get going in the morning and I'm more distractible. But there's so many other things that could be attributed to. So, but when you start to make that little laundry list and you say, and then maybe you start to leak urine when you jump or laugh and you're like, where did that come from? Or you start to put on weight, in the upper arms and around the middle, that sort of that hormonal profile. And you're saying, where's all this coming from? Because maybe you're nowhere near your actual menopause. And so people really don't know how to catalog a lot of what is going on. That I'm tired, but I'm wired, busy brain, yes. All of those pieces.
That's so very true. I think also, a large part of it too is in previous years or decades, hundreds of years, I don't know how many years, but the conversations haven't been there maybe as much between mother and daughter. And that's nothing against previous mothers. I think it's just the information wasn't there for them. And just the conversations weren't made important to them. And so it's something that, and you know what, my daughter is going to be in her 50s in way too many years. So the conversations didn't happen. And I think it's so important that these conversations start earlier, because you're right. There are things that start to happen way before we're in menopause. And if we could attribute it to menopause and put actions into place going, oh, actually, this is starting, I think that would be so much larger. I also think it's important that that's why we're starting these conversations, so women of every age can learn more and understand more. It's such an important change in life, and if you can go into it with a bit more control, yes, I think it's very important that these conversations are being had now, and so grateful to, women like you that are coming out to say, yes, I'm willing to talk about it and help with it as well.
Yeah, and if you think too, by the time I'm in the thick of it,
yes.
If I'm asking my own mother at that point, well, that's like asking me now about what my experience with puberty was like. I remember the vague points of it and some ups and downs, but I'm not going to remember the details of when it started. I've asked my own mother, and I remember being a late teen or early in my 20s and sort of giggling about the hot flashes because the turtleneck would come off and it would go back on as the cold kicked in. But I don't remember the rest of her experience because we were not having conversations. To ask her now, she's like, I don't remember most of that. So if that knowledge translation doesn't happen as an honored rite of passage, as opposed to a don't ask about that, if it doesn't happen among women in their own community or mothers and aunties that are maybe going through it at different times, there's a loss there, because often, as you may have noticed, when we go to our primary care practitioners, menopause isn't something that's necessarily meant to be treated from a medical standpoint, right? Yes. It is a progression, but there is so much that can be done to thrive, not just survive, all of those aspects of things that we often talk about. We want to be equipped to have those conversations and be curious and not just sort of accept, well, we don't know, we'll see. Oh, okay, well, who then can be on my team to guide me through this?
That's right. That's so true. And I think I've been reading, obviously, a lot of studies and things lately. And very recently, there was even something written about the fact that the small percentage of women that actually deal with their menopause symptoms. And I think that brings to light right there, because they don't realize that perhaps there are things that they can do, maybe not to completely eradicate the symptoms, but to alleviate them as well.
And it's not just the hormone therapy. And I think that's where women go. It's the only one we know.
Right.
And when those original studies were done and they said, oh, there's an increased risk of breast cancer, when they've re-looked at that data, they now know that the women who were given hormone therapy that went on to develop breast cancer were already in the high risk category for breast cancer. And really that hormone therapy is a really wonderful option for many, many women, but that doesn't sit with everybody. Some people do not do well with exogenous or external hormones So what is the spectrum of options?
Exactly.
What's available to me to guide my own journey in a way that suits me best?
That's right. And I think that's important too, isn't it? The one size fits all just doesn't apply here. It's every woman is so different with how it works. I have to, just getting back to the conversation about the fact that very few conversations over the years happened, I have to admit that now that I'm in menopause officially, it was only towards the end of perimenopause that I knew that there was something called perimenopause. That's how little the conversation with anyone in my world had been, how small, non-existent really. I didn't know what perimenopause. I find when I speak to women now and I mention peri, they have, a lot of them again don't realize there's peri and there's in menopause and there's post, and there's so many aspects to this that a lot of women just have never really heard of before.
Well, and I'll bring my own case to this, is I had my children so late. I was 36 and 39 when I had my kids. And so, around when my daughter was 2, I started to go through some things and I went, oh, I don't think this is the postnatal night sweats.
Yes.
This is something else. And so for those of us having children 35 plus, which is a lot more women, there is that you could transition very quickly from postnatal into perimenopause and just attribute it to life with young children. And that one kind of stuck with me, as I remember it dawned on me and I was like, something is different. And obviously I work in women's health a lot, so that I was at least in a position to be curious.
Yes.
And, there's no definitive test to say I'm in perimenopause, but I'm ticking a lot of those early boxes. And I thought, okay, now is the time to act and, start those conversations with the people on my team that I trust and sort of stay ahead of the curve if possible.
Do you know, I'm sitting here, you can't see me jumping up and down with excitement, but I'm sitting here jumping up and down with excitement inside because I know a lot of things that we discuss will probably end up being future episodes, but just you mentioning there about the fact the women having babies older, therefore could be transitioning so quickly, had never even thought of that. And that is such an important thing for women to understand too. I mean, we might, what I'm hoping is we have women watching this show, or the people who love them, and they're thinking, oh, I've been so alone. Oh, that's me. And right. They had no idea. You're giving voice to it.
Right. And it's just, oh, am I just tired? Is this just life after with kids as I age? And it's, And what I find a lot in my practice too is there's a significant amount of grief. And it's not an excitement about this transition. It's not an honoring of what our bodies have done and what our lives have meant. It is a grief. And I found that was a big one when I went from postnatal into perimenopause. It was really hard because things were changing that were out of my control that I wasn't anticipating coming that early. And, it was that, I don't want to say the closing of the door. It was the closing of the door of the childbearing years in a way, not entirely, but it was that, oh, wow, I'm going to now have to go through this while I'm in significant output mode with my family. My children are young, my practice is thriving. Where am I going to catch my breath to hold space for my own self with whatever I'm experiencing?
This is what we do. No city's too big, no pup's too small.
What I feel for you, it's so weird.
Are you trying to say you love me?
I'm trying to say I sort of love you.
I am Justin Newell. I am an EVS operator, which is something that travels all over. So today I am based in Winnipeg.
And over top of the blocker.
I used Rogers and my volunteering time there as a means of gaining experience. I found while I was there that I also gained some great friends and also some business connections to be able to further my career. Rogers was fun because I was able to do a variety of different positions technically. I've always tried to be a technician in many different sorts. So from being an audio mixer to a switcher, a replay professional, to a camera person. It gave me a safe place and an encouraging place to be able to try different things, to be able to just, as Miss Bristol says, get messy.
I think switching mindsets is so key, because you're right. We so often think about, oh, we're coming into menopause. Menopause is going to happen, getting older, menopause. And there's very little thought about thriving and about feeling the power and feeling emboldened. And I understand that. I understand that. You know, I have my certain things that are going on with me. I'm not suffering like some women have and do. But at the same time, boy, it gets you thinking about so much. And it really is a time to embrace everything that we are, everything that we've done for ourselves, for others in the world, and really embrace ourselves and try and, through these conversations, change the focus to making this a time to be proud of.
It is. And, you know, among my group of women friends, we all had children around the same age, and we've got a good age, or at the same time, but we have a good age span. And I sort of broached it. And, you know, I said, these are my kind of concerns. We're sitting around a fire. And, you know, two of my friends were like, send me everything you know, right? Because one was only 36 and one is a little bit older. And everybody's desperate for trusted information. Where do I even start with some of this? And so grateful for this opportunity is, how am I going to do that? And how do I navigate the relationship dynamics when, you know, my libido has changed and sex is less comfortable and I can't produce vaginal moisture, all of those really important things. How do I even navigate those? Because I think it's happening too soon and I wasn't ready. I just figured it would naturally slowly happen. And sometimes it isn't that way. And sometimes it is quite a quick transition for some of the symptoms.
That's right. That's right. And I think, yeah, you're right. I think having friends voicing things, you voicing things has now allowed your friends to understand more and learn more. And that's the ripple effect of all these conversations that seem to be starting up now, which is wonderful. What about, I think it's very important also to address symptoms. I mean, I know there's a whole range of symptoms, but how one symptom can then affect so many things that actually it's not just that one symptom anymore, like lack of sleep. I haven't slept. I have no energy. And how that can affect the rest of our day, our life.
So when we talk about lack of sleep, and prolonged lack of sleep can lead to hormone dysregulation. I'll kind of keep this as a more surface conversation, but the hormone dysregulation over a longer time, or an increase in that stress hormone, right? That increased cortisol will then, you know, affect pain and mood, and pain and mood perception as well.
Yes.
Right. So then we're in this little, you know, downward spiral, and the hormone dysregulation in the face of changing hormones, whether it's, you know, more estrogen because the progesterone drops. So it's a relative shift into excess estrogen first. And how does that then show up as I'm sleepy, I'm exhausted, I can't shut my brain off because I'm not getting restorative sleep. And then that carries on for 6 months. And then, you know, we start to get the link with, well, my libido has changed, my muscle mass may start to drop because of this hormone change. That's right. And now, oh my gosh, now I'm angry because I'm sleep deprived. And now I'm just mad because I pee my pants when I laugh and I shouldn't, right? And
I don't find anything funny anymore.
Nothing is funny because I don't want to wear a pad when I laugh, right? So all of those little pieces, and then the grief and the annoyance and the frustration sets in, especially when there's no voice to it, when there's no one to hold that space for you, or maybe you have siblings or a partner that doesn't really understand, maybe isn't interested, or just is so bewildered by the whole situation, much like our parents probably were when we entered the puberty tunnel. You know, it's, where is this coming from? What has happened to my lovely partner? You know, all of those little ripple effects of how one can then exacerbate another. So when you're speaking of sleep, it's so critical if we say, but if we can intervene on sleep, then there's maybe an opportunity for gentle exercise, which then further helps with hormone regulation, inflammation in the body, and promotes better sleep.
That's right.
You know, so we can address it at those early stages of things that oh, okay, there are some sleep hygiene things I know I can do. Because what do we do if we're tired and we're bored and we're aggravated? We're going to scroll on our phone. We're going to scroll on the computer and really not shutting those devices down an hour before bed.
That's right.
Hard stop, right? Putting things in place to promote sleep in ways that you never had to before.
Yes.
And it's not that your body can't do it, but it might need a little support, much like when we look at our kids with structured sleep. They're usually generally better humans. And we're just, we went through the super resilient years, and now we just got to put a little structure to the bedtime back in place, right? You can't Netflix till 11:30 and expect to shut it off.
Exactly. Yes, I know maybe there's been days where I haven't been a necessarily great human after not much sleep. So, I mean, I always think there's nothing really that you can't achieve by having a good night's sleep, or even having, more than 4 hours sleep at night.
Right. Is the quality of your sleep
that's right.
good? And whether that's, routine sleep hygiene, whether that's, a supplement or anything like that. There's so many aspects of this can be addressed by, your team of people that you're going to surround yourself with. Is how do I promote that? Because then you're ready to face, whatever
anything
is coming down the pipe.
That's right. And so I want to speak about, in a second about looking at who to include in this team, because I think it's really important. And I know you're a massive believer in this. It's so important to have a team surrounding you. So we can talk about what that looks like. But before, I'd love to talk more about what you bring to the table, because I know that you work with so many women in your practice. You're hearing firsthand the concerns, which was why I was so excited to have you it was a no-brainer as the first guest on this, because what you bring to the table in this area. So yeah, tell us what you bring to the table.
Well, as a pelvic health and orthopedic physio, a lot of my practice is women as they transition through, late teen to early 20s, through their childbearing years in their 30s to 40s, and then reclaiming themselves. And that's a big part of it, and I think there's that people are so thirsty to have somebody to talk to, carte blanche, and it's maybe their practitioner, maybe they're in their 50s and their primary care physician is a male in their 20s, and they just don't feel that there's enough time or that conversation can be had in that. And that's not to say that they're all like that, but we have our own perceptions going into these things. So as a women's health physiotherapist and a pelvic health physiotherapist, I can do an internal exam to directly assess the vaginal tissues, but that's lovely. And that's a big part of it, to ensure that the pelvic floor muscles are strong so we can start to deal with muscle mass that may be influencing incontinence. But really, it's looking at the spectrum. So women will come to me because they're leaking.
Okay.
And they say, oh, I did after my children. Maybe it went away. Maybe it didn't, but now it's worse. So that's the easier conversation piece. That's where people come in easily now, because, there's ads on TV about incontinence, and maybe their daughters are saying, you know what, Mom, you actually don't have to deal with that. Why don't you go see a pelvic floor physiotherapist and see what can be done? Well, then we start the conversation. Right? Because it's not just about what's going on in the pelvic floor. And we say, oh, well, you've been leaking. Have you been dehydrating yourself to prevent the leaks? Because that's actually going to make the leaks worse in most cases.
Interesting.
It's super fun. And what's going on an intimate level? What brings you joy? So I have all the time to sit and talk about these things, and sort of maybe direct them to a sex therapist if there's some relationship dynamics or things that are really going to be beyond my scope.
Yes.
But we can have those conversations around, hey, okay, in menopause, we know that the vaginal tissues lose a bit of their plumpness. Our ability to self-lubricate changes.
Yeah.
These are things we can actually work around. There are vaginal moisturizers that are not, there's some good ones. There's some ones with a whole bunch of stuff in it that we don't want, but that can improve that. And then maybe this is a time to have a conversation with your doctor about whether a vaginal estrogen would help plump those tissues, or maybe the urethra needs a little bit more plumping support, and whether you're appropriate for it with a cancer history. But it's that time to sit and dig into, how do you live your life and go through your day, and what are the barriers that you're working around? Do we have to work around them, or can we adjust and correct some of those things? Because people think, well, it's menopause, so this is as good as it gets. And that is absolutely the biggest piece. Is it is not true. Muscle strength and tone can be gained at any age and stage. Learning and bioplasticity can occur at any age and stage. And there are so many subtle layers and things that we've unconsciously, sneakily done that are affecting those things. So we dehydrate a little bit. Oh, and then you start to deal with constipation. Well, constipation then is going to increase your likelihood of pelvic floor dysfunction.
Yeah.
And GI disruption is going to affect your mood because serotonin is produced in the gut. And here's that link. And though I may not be the person to address all aspects of those, often I'm the first person to sit and connect those dots and have that 45-minute to an hour-long conversation about what's important to them and really give me the spectrum of everything you're dealing with.
That's right.
And, oh, okay, great. Let's get you building your team.
Wonderful, which I do want to touch on. Before I just want to address the fact that information is such power. And I think speaking with somebody like you, we can go into our doctors. I love our doctor. You can go into your doctor. However, like you say, they've got a lot of people to work with. They have what they're specialized in. And I think coming to somebody like you where you can have more time and then the direction, go to your doctor and actually mention this to them, and specifically. I think that's going to be so important. I also think there's going to be people watching, and I know I've said it before in this show right a few minutes ago, but just everything you're saying, there's going to be those women with those aha moments going, oh my God, my GI? I had no idea.
I had no idea that was maybe a symptom of perimenopause, that my GI was starting to get disruptive or slowed down. It was because it's a slow creep. It isn't a light switch necessarily.
That's right. So let's go to the team then. You're building your team. They've come to see you. They've got armed with all of this information. Obviously, you're going to be a big part of that team.
That's my bias, of course. But
I agree. Who else would be on somebody's team or suggesting?
Yeah. So let's talk about, and I think it will speak to what suits you best and what you're dealing with, right? So you've got your primary care physician and you want to have those conversations. You want them aware of what you're dealing with, because they also need to be there to rule out that this isn't something like low thyroid, low iron, all of those things that all of a sudden can boost your energy. And, and those are things that I can't deal with. If you're kind of getting to a point where, well, my tests kind of look somewhat normal, I always love to get a naturopathic doctor involved, because again, they have this hour to hour and a half intake where they're really going to look at all of those aspects. And maybe they'll relook at your blood markers and say, you know what, but you're kind of low on all of those. And okay, here's some functional medicine. Here's some, foods. And maybe you're going to talk then, here's some supplements or some foods that can help you get through this transition before we have to consider something like hormone therapy or bioidentical hormones. And they can sort of say, here's where I think you are on that spectrum of need. And you say, great, I've got 3 to 4 years, or I can test this theory out before I go down that road, right? Here are my next level of options. And then, food and exercise. So you want to have a coach in some way. And so dietitians for food, and be it a physio, be it somebody who's a trainer who gets what women are going through. So who can coach you through exercise that doesn't feel like it's bullying your body, that's supportive, that is saying, I understand who women are at this stage, and a boot camp may not be the right choice. That's right. Right? We're going to change because we want to maximize all the muscle mass we can gain and preserve, because we lose the most bone density and muscle mass often within those first 2 years post cessation of the menses. So really, truly in menopause. So what are we going to do to set you up? Because we know that increased muscle mass improves or reduces the likelihood of hot flashes and the intensity of them. Right. So do you have somebody who can coach you through that and really listen on days when you just don't have the oomph for it? This is not, I'm being lazy and this is not the time, again, to have a militant coach shouting at you. This is somebody that's supporting you and, pushing you a little bit to stay focused. But those are really important. I'm a big fan of having massage therapy. So women going through these transitions, we tend to start to dislike and distrust our bodies a little bit. And when you go to massage, particularly for treatment, I really find it helps the body remap where you start and stop and reconnect you to your tissues in a really systematic way, whether they're doing sort of more treatment-based or more, global relaxation, but sort of saying, I'm honoring my system, I'm putting myself in the hands of somebody else, and I'm determining where I start and where I stop and where I hurt, but more importantly, where I don't hurt. And all of those pieces that can come along with that. Those are like the first round always for me is that group. And then you've got to have your village of people, the people that you can trust to talk to, that maybe you're not paying for their services.
Yeah.
And it's having that little bit of first courage to say, I'm struggling or I'm confused. Is anybody else going through this?
That's so important. I think we're becoming so much better with opening up like that. I think, years ago, it used to be almost taboo not to admit that you were struggling and not to even reach out, whether it's paid or not, to reach out to someone. And it's becoming so much more prevalent and natural, and actually this is wonderful for your health to do. It's really important.
Yeah. Well, and any of your musculoskeletal practitioners, so physio, chiro,
that's right,
massage, fascial stretch, anything that sort of sits with you where you connect with that practitioner and you feel heard and seen, and that there's a communal goal in mind.
Yes.
You're going to need that more through this transition potentially than maybe you ever did in your life. Just even to say, you know what, you're feeling a lot. I'm not seeing a lot in the tissues. I think this is a systemic shift that's happening. And I think you're sore, but you're safe.
Yes.
And there's nothing that needs to be fixed. And sometimes me saying, you're actually okay. I don't need to be intervening here. And to give you that sense, so you're learning what your body feels like when, maybe you're dealing with a hormone shift, or, actually, no, I'm stiff and tight somewhere.
That's right.
Versus they can feel the same as you wake up sore, but actually there's really nothing wrong with your tissues. It's a systemic effect that you're feeling.
For the mind.
Yeah.
I mean, we can so often tense up and feel stressed without even knowing. And when you hear somebody say those words that you're okay, I know I went to the doctor recently, and there was something to do with all of this. There was something that I thought was going on, and I've convinced myself. And then the doctor was actually that's not the case. And you're right. It was very, okay. I'll relax a little bit more now.
Yeah.
Very important. And you're right. I think it's very important that we stress that the first step is our doctor, because our doctors know us, and we do want to rule out if there's anything else going on. And then further than that, if we need more information, regardless, I think it's very important to build your team anyway.
Yeah.
But I think the first step is always as well seeing your doctor, ruling out anything else, and then that you're on the right track.
Yeah, not assuming that the constellation of what you're experiencing is
menopause.
Just menopause, right? Because
that's right.
Again, there's a lot of overlap and mimicry, and there are lots of things that, like I said, thyroid changes. You know what, your iron has dropped because you're still getting a period, and that can take a few months. You may just suddenly feel a heck of a lot better and start to sleep better.
That's right.
So it's always good to have those conversations, but you can have them in parallel. You can collect your information kind of at any stage.
Absolutely.
But just don't disregard all the basics.
It's true. You know what? I think this is just so incredible on so many levels, because it is going to have women really thinking. I think it's important that they connect with not being menopause symptoms, that it being, it could be GI, it could be sleep, it could be iron. Actually, it's so much easier to fight something when you know what you're fighting. Mm-hmm. And when we can now start looking at it that way, I think also the conversation being opened up even more, I think is really important, because now we're going to, tell our daughter, well, my daughter's a Chihuahua Golden Retriever, so I won't talk to her, but we're going to start talking to our daughters probably, and our sons, about these things, so that as they age, they're understanding so much more.
And they'll understand what the women in their lives are going through.
Right.
And all of those pieces are so, so important. And, then we're taking the shame away from it as well.
Oh, yes.
Because we are excellent storytellers. And, as you just said, I had myself convinced, right? I am an amazing storyteller. I get one little nugget and I'm like,
that's right.
Clearly that. And then somebody comes along and says, actually, coming from the outside perspective, it's not that at all. And you're like, oh, okay, well, I wound myself right up there, didn't I? And so it's all of those things and involving the people in your life who are going to be a little bit of a mirror. Like, okay, you're at a 10 and I need you at like a 4 here. Can we just have a conversation and pause and let's get you some support through this if that's what you're going through, or you just having a rough day, that's okay,
Yes, that's true. Oh, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I do see, if you will, I see down the road, Angela being here for many more episodes because there's so much. I think out of each one thing we've discussed today could be an episode in itself to really delve into these things. So I hope you would be open to it.
Absolutely.
This has been a great conversation. Is there anything in closing that you have to say that we haven't touched on?
Yeah, I just take that first step of having that conversation and just be curious, not judgmental, to quote Ted Lasso. Be curious, not judgmental. Even when it comes to yourself and you say, is it this? It may be, it may not be, but there's so much you can do to really set yourself up for this amazing and creative next chapter of your life and say, who do I get to be next? And who do I lay the foundation to be as I go through this transition?
Oh, that is just beautifully said. That really is right there. So thank you. I'm so grateful. I was so excited you said yes to be the first one. I'm so grateful, and I'm so grateful for the help that you already offer women, but also of the help that you'll be offering through being here again.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dan Naylor. I'm the host of London Lights, the show where we talk about notable Londoners who have made a big mark, big impact on the world of music, entertainment, sports, politics. Today our guest is Jonathan Hollow, Yuri Poole of the McCartney years, the one and only Jim Chapman, Peter Brennan of Jeans and Classics fame. London Lights, Thursday at 8:30.
One in 3 fatalities on our waterways is caused by impaired boating. Don't boat impaired.
Some kind of Canadian joke, sir? I mean, I know you're the instructor and everything, but we can't carry the ball. How can we get a decent shot at the peach basket?
All right. Maybe we can allow a carry of a couple of steps.
And Mr. Naismith, sir, it sure slows things down having to climb up here every time.
Well, then let's cut the bottom out of the basket.
Ah, but I need these baskets back.
100 years after James Naismith from Almont, Ontario invented it, basketball was being played by hundreds of millions of people around the world.
So this is the part of the show I'm extremely excited about because we want to bring everyday women from the community into the conversation. We've heard from the experts and what they have to say. So we wanted to actually ask women in our community what they have felt with regard to these, whether it's symptoms or feelings or issues, and make the conversation larger. So I'm really excited about today's show. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited about this. So the first episode is especially sort of touching on the overarching discussion of menopause and what that can mean for everybody, how different it is. There's no real cookie cutter, and some women really struggle with it, and some women, you know, they say they hardly feel anything as they went through. Firstly, I'm very excited about introducing you, Wanda. So Wanda is a personal growth coach. She's with Elements of Flow. She's also an author and a speaker. So thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me here, Carolyn. Thank you.
And my other wonderful guest I'm really grateful for as well is Alison Blackshaw. She's an investment advisor with RBC Wealth Management. Thank you so much as well for being here.
My pleasure.
Great to have the conversation started with you too. So from here, the first episode is really touching on menopause in general, symptoms, what we feel, the discussions that have or hadn't happened over the years, and creating more conversation as we go as well. So I wanted to get your thoughts, each of you, on how menopause sometimes has been over the years pushed under the rug. Somebody might have a moment of emotion and the hormones, it's menopause, and not enough perhaps weight is given to it, and therefore some women over the years have probably felt a bit alone with it and not really known where to turn. So I just thought I would open the conversation up to both of you. Do either of you have anything to say on that particular topic?
Yeah, I think for me, my experience was that my generation of mothers, I guess, it seemed, were having an extraordinary amount of hysterectomies. So when I first started with strange symptoms that were so early 40s, out of the ordinary for what I, was used to experiencing, I was scared. Mm-hmm. And I remember asking my mom, and she said, unfortunately, I never went through menopause because I had a hysterectomy at 51, so there were no answers.
Yeah.
So then I remember, so at that time, I think early in perimenopause, I don't think it occurred to me that what I was experiencing was the beginning stages of menopause. And so I think my original feeling was fear and a bit of writing it off, but also, is there something else going on? Yeah. So I think at that time I was definitely lacking an education.
Yes. Okay. Which is important. That's
interesting.
That's what we're finding a lot, and hopefully we can change things with this.
Yeah.
How about you, Warren?
Well, it takes me back to memories when I was probably still living at home as a teenager, and sometimes my mom would just snap. It was like she would start yelling at us kids for what seemed she would never yell at us for, and so the back of my mind, it was always, I wonder if that's like menopausal symptoms, but we never actually would discuss it. So not knowing, she didn't seem comfortable in discussing it, and that type of thing. So like fast forward, I was one of those that probably had perimenopausal symptoms before I was 40, really heavy bleeding and all that sort of thing. And there was really, first, those were probably the ages where I would still be going to the family doctor, and there was really not much help coming from that end of things in terms of, it's just something that women have to deal with over time, right? Yeah. And that there was nothing, like the next step would be the hysterectomy. And that wasn't necessarily one thing I was jumping on board with right away. So you also kind of look back now from, fast forward so many years, how many of those other symptoms were perimenopausal symptoms? Right. Like it probably started just before I was 40, where I have really issues with the soles of my feet getting really hot, and they blister. And nobody has ever been able to give an explanation for that one, even though I've given it to ask that question to many of the practitioners that I see, and I see a lot of practitioners, but also like the heart palpitations, that type of thing. And I've tried to stay very natural remedy, trying to figure out different ways of supporting the symptoms.
Wonderful. And have you found anything in particular has helped you then?
Just daily supplements, nutrition. I've taken a lot of magnesium over the years too. But then I also have issues, musculoskeletal issues too. So sometimes it's helping that, or is it helping that?
Yeah.
You know, because really it's all connected.
Well,
and
you're
so you really, one thing can be affecting the other thing. Weight gain was a big thing that I had to deal with as well.
Yeah, you're right. It's all, funnily enough, that was a big part of the conversation as well with Angela today, was how things are so interconnected. So we maybe don't sleep very well at night, but that loss of sleep doesn't just stop at the loss of sleep. It can affect our GI tract, it can affect our mindset, there's just our energy, and then when we don't have the energy, what can we do throughout the day? There's many things. Have you found that to be a struggle as you've gone through this kind of thing?
Oh, absolutely. It's funny, my husband and I have coined it the hormone dump. So, and he always seems to recognize it before I do. But I'll find that I'll go through a phase where I'm not sleeping, and so I sort of have to dig deep and listen to what's going on with my body. But I do find that they come in kind of layered symptoms. So I won't be sleeping, but I also won't be digesting things very well. The hot flashes might be particularly robust at that time. And then it's just a matter of emotionally saying, okay, this is a hormone dump, let's ride it out because it will end. And then sure enough, it starts to subside. So yeah, they tend to come, the symptomology tends to come as a cluster, I suppose. I mean, does anybody really know?
That's right.
But I suppose it's a matter of, you know, maybe at any given time my body's trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And I can just imagine all these hormones like bumping into each other in the hallways, right?
Yes.
Like, hang on, I thought it was my shift. No, I guess it's my
That's a
shift,
great analogy.
Yeah,
that really is a good analogy.
You have to have a sense of humor, really, when it comes to dealing with this stuff. But yes, then it will subside. But quite honestly, initially, when all these things were happening, with the lack of information, you panic.
Yes.
Right? Because now it's easy for me to say at this age, having experienced it for a few years, okay, yeah, I'm able to identify, I've been here before, and so I know what's going on. But initially when it reared its head, I didn't. So that's when you, of course, write to Google, right?
That's right.
And of course,
which isn't the best thing to do.
It's always cancer.
But I love the awareness piece. So the whole idea of at least being in tune with your body to note that things are changing. And then it's that, okay, I'm noting this symptom, and then what can I do about it?
That's right.
So, and being able to ask questions is the big thing, is being able to have people that you can go and ask questions to.
Yes.
So whether that is a doctor, naturopath, friend, you know, colleague, whatever it happens to be, just being able to have somebody that you can talk to about it.
I think that's a great point, Wanda, and I think at this point in the process for me, having sort of a quiver of tools, if you will, is helpful in that, okay, I've gathered some information over the last 5 years. My doc, I am personally, I've chosen to try to get through this naturally and manage symptomology as best I can, either with diet or with exercise. But at least I know my doc has said to me, you know, if it gets to be to a point where you simply can't do it anymore, here are the options.
Which sort of takes me to the conversation about a health team, a women's health team. Because everyone has different experiences with different medical people in their world, just like they have different experiences with, there's all kinds of different trainers and coaches out there. And, you know, I think it's very important that we have that health team around us, whether it is friends, whether it is our doctors obviously are going to be a big part of that health team, but also are there other people, chiropractors or physiotherapists? You know, what does that look like? Do you have a team? Have you ever considered thinking about getting a team? Sounds like you have a team.
Yes. Well, I definitely already had a team in place for my scoliosis that I deal with. That's chronic, of course.
Yes, it is.
So between primarily my naturopath, so being able to discuss symptoms and look at different supplements that way, but also I've seen nutritionists over the years. I have seen, I often see massage therapists, chiropractor, osteopath. So yes, I'm the one with the team, as well as physiotherapy as well.
Wonderful.
And so it's like just to ask those little questions sometimes. Can this help me?
That's right.
Or at least making sure the practitioner is aware of certain symptoms that you're having. Is there anything that we could do, because it really is a team effort, to be able to help alleviate whatever symptom that we're looking at the time.
That's right. And I think the beauty of that is because I know my family doctor will be the first one to say, you know what, this is what you should be thinking about. Do you have a physio? This is what they need to be looking at. Or do you have a car? They all tend to recommend each other, which is what you want. At the end of the day, out of this, you want everybody in on the same page and helping. How about you? Do you tend to...
No, I don't have a team. I wish I did. I love that idea. No, I certainly have a massage therapist that I go to on a regular basis, and quite honestly, she's just wonderful. And she and I will actually have conversations about menopause, and I'll say, here's what she'll always say to me, okay, how you been, what's going on, and I'm pretty frank with her. She's terrific. But in terms of a group of people working together, wouldn't that be fantastic?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, I feel almost like we're kind of the pioneers of this, right? We're the groundbreakers, because we've talked at length about the fact that since I had no sort of confidant to say, hey, here's what I'm going through now. Did you experience that? I sought it out in older friends, and I was really quite surprised at the reluctance to talk about it. I couldn't understand it. I respected it, but I couldn't understand it. So I have found it a challenge to sort of glean more information. And we all know that hot flashes are to be expected and mood swings are to be expected, but there's just a myriad of other symptoms that we don't necessarily associate with menopause.
That's right.
And I think those are the ones that tend to stymie us and maybe throw us into a bit of a panic.
You're right.
So for me, I had muscle aches about once a month, just terrible muscle aches that made me wonder if I had arthritis, because my father has arthritis. Another one was out of the blue. I developed an allergy to sulfites, quite literally out of the blue, and it was very violent and came on very suddenly in my 40s. In retrospect, I think I'm able to trace it back that I already had a sensitivity, but it was absolutely magnified and heightened in perimenopause.
Interesting.
Something that 10 years later I learned, yes, absolutely, and with a bit of reflection, because I remember that my environmental allergies started during puberty. So I thought, okay, there's a connection here, but all that to say, it truly feels like we are sort of blazing a trail.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree. Not only I think we're blazing a trail, we're getting the convert, and when I say we, not just us three, I realize there's many people out there in the medical world, there's many women talking about this, there's many spouses even, I think, wanting to support their partners, and I just think this is the generation where we want to know more, and what can we learn to help ourselves, but then we're going to, move forward, and we've now got information for the younger crowd to get on board with so much sooner and to help themselves. So this has been wonderful. I've really appreciated that. We could go on and just do episodes, I think, of this alone. I think it's going to be very helpful to women, opening the conversation and, you know, just giving people that feeling, that sense of, oh, I'm okay. This is what's going on. So thank you. I really appreciate your honesty today.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Mario Elia, and I'm the host of a new show here on Rogers TV that we're calling Keeping London Healthy with Dr. Mario. I'm a local family physician here in London, and I'm very excited to be working with Rogers TV on this new format, which will give us an opportunity to explore all sorts of topics related to medicine and health. So tune in Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. We'll see you then.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
Light this up.
So they pay you to tell stories. Ah!
This is personal. You can't deny that would feel good. There's always something. We have something so real between us.
All right, we've had a great episode here with Angela, getting a total overview on how we can help ourselves with menopause. And I think if there's anything that I've learned from her, but also from what I've researched and how I work with clients, I think it's very much about no longer thinking about menopause as menopause and symptoms as menopausal symptoms, but I think it's extremely important, and to take the power and control back to us, I think it's very important instead to look at this as brain, body, what's going on in our system, and what we can do in order to help those areas in our body and in our mind. And when we start focusing on something like that, then we have more of a handle on how we can go about helping ourselves feel better. You can probably understand why I wanted Angela as the first guest on this show. Thank you so much to her, but I hope that you have found a lot of information here, as well as perhaps it's given you hope about maybe what is going on with you yourself. All of the information on how to reach Angela will be on my website, as well as how to access our private Facebook group where we're trying to create a lot of conversation. So if you head over to coachcarolyn.ca/menopause, that's where you'll find all of the information you need. I hope that this has been of help to you, and I really hope at the end of the day it's so important that you don't forget to sparkle.
Carolyn, and I'm excited to be the new host of LDN ONT TV. Join me and my guests as we discuss the topics trending here in London, Ontario. Tune in Thursdays at 6:30, only on Rogers TV.
Each member is chosen for his or her own completely unique set of abilities. Your mission is